Hi, this is Kamala Murphy, and you are listening to the Heart and Chutzpah podcast, where we talk about giving ourselves permission or having the chutzpah to just claim a right to live really juicy, luscious lives. With our big hearts, we're going to face love and loss, heartache and healing. We'll fall down and rise up again. And through it all, we'll develop our heart and our chutzpah, and we'll find our way to our own unique, luscious, and amazing life. Thank you for joining me. Enjoy this episode. Hi, everyone. This is Kamala Murphy. Welcome to this episode of the Heart and Chutzpah podcast. Today, I am so excited to have a good friend of mine, Catherine Rowan, on with me. And let me just share a little bit about Catherine. She is the founding, she's a leading feminine empowerment expert. She's the creator of The Wise Woman's Journey and an advocate for a new narrative on aging, beauty, and contribution for women. Catherine works with awakening, purpose-driven women, helping them to release pain from the past and transition to the next phase of their lives, and in complete alignment with their feminine values. I'm so excited to welcome you, Kathy, to the Heart and Chutzpah podcast. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Kamala. I always really enjoy our conversations, so I'm sure this one will be no exception.
Yes.
And it's when you and I put our heads together, something interesting always comes out. So yes. Let's see what happens.
Right. So this is so true. It's like every time we talk, there's just this almost a synchronicity, and we're so on the same wavelength, and yet it's a little bit different, but it's so good to have you. And I'd like, if you don't mind, to have you start just sharing a little bit about your own journey as a wise woman. What's life been like for you, and how did you, what brought you to this point in your life, especially with, I didn't mention this interview series that's starting in early March. And so I'd love to have you speak a little bit about that as well. But what's your journey been like, Kathy?
Well, it's actually a big question. Of course, it's a big question, I think, to anybody. But I think for those of us that really resonate with the idea that we've been on a journey, it's probably that, it hasn't been maybe the smooth ride that we imagined maybe in our late teens or early 20s. And of course, some people don't have a smooth ride before that. But, particularly, I think many of us in our late teens and early 20s have a sort of like a heroic or heroine type story going on in our minds of how our life is going to unfold and how we're going to achieve some state of perfection.
Yeah.
It didn't take too long into my adult life for that sort of dream to start sort of crumbling, really. So, I had an unexpected health condition in my 20s that took a few years to resolve, and that meant that I lost some faith in doctors in the process and started looking into alternatives at that point. And I guess that's partly what first introduced me to energy, and some different type of thinking than I have been brought up with. And that led into an interest in sort of yoga and also Taoist philosophies. So I was sort of became very interested in the Eastern traditions. And I guess at the time, through my 20s and my 30s, I was working in a pretty conventional job in human resources and then in management consulting. So I looked really conventional on the outside, but I had these thoughts on the inside and experiences which were not in alignment with my family or my friendship groups at the time.
Right.
And eventually things started to crack, and I took the step that I think perhaps a lot of people do when they first start on a journey, is I went into psychotherapy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And of course, then things start to unravel a bit more because
bubble up, right?
I do remember the therapist saying to me early on, and I must have said, I think it was quite popular back in those days, and I think we're talking about early 90s now, around 1990. And I think the therapist said something like, said to her, I feel that. And I think it was really popular in organizations at the time. They were trying to become a bit more, a bit more sensitive. And people were using the word feel without really having a feeling. So I said to the therapist, I feel this about this. And she said, Kathy, that's not a feeling. You can't feel that. That is a thought when you have that in there. And she proceeded to educate me about the difference between a thought and a feeling. Well, and then it went on, and I got educated about boundaries, and I started to see all the patterns that I'd been operating, thinking I was just quite a normal person.
Right.
Well, of course I was a normal person, but you know what I mean. Thinking that I was okay, and suddenly the whole basis upon which my life had been built suddenly was not looking very okay. And I think from there it just becomes one step after the next. If you really engage with that journey, once you start picking yourself apart or collaborating with a therapist, a coach, or a teacher who is on your side and helping you to do that transformative work
Right.
within a really good holding container.
Mm.
So from the psychotherapies, and I was sort of in personal development in my job anyway. I'd sort of graduated through sort of like from HR into outplacement work. So I was working with redundant executives who's lost their jobs and city downsizings in London in the late 80s and early 90s. Working with them, and we called it career counseling at the time, but we call it coaching now.
Right.
So I had not only the personal motivation to do the work, but also, the professional interest as well, because I've become more interested in how could I go more deeply with my clients. And it was starting to occur to me that the answer to going more deeply with my clients was to go more deeply with myself.
Yeah. When you say that, I just get chills, because clearly, there's one of those intersections for us. It's like going deep and really discovering more about who we are, what makes us tick, and what we want, so.
Yeah, exactly. And so it just continued there. So like the yoga, energy practices, I trained in Taoist practices and Taoist shamanism for a number of years through the Universal Tao and through a teacher in the UK who had done more work in the shamanic areas than in the actual system. And from there, I become interested in what they call in the Tao the healing love practices, i.e. the Tantric practices. And then I started looking at other presentations of Tantra to learn more. I initially went into what I call Western Tantra path, because I think it's quite different from the traditional Tantric texts and teachings.
Right.
And I was actually I wanted to find after that a female teacher who knew something about the traditions, because I'd read enough and had enough experiences at different workshops just to feel that I wasn't really getting to the bottom of the teachings, the Tantric teachings, and also the teachings that would be most appropriate to women and women's bodies. I really felt there was a patriarchal male overlay in Western Tantra. Well, I mean, there is. I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is now, having studied it for so long. And pussycat noise in the background. Sorry
Love
about
that.
And yeah, through a series of synchronicities, actually, I was led to a teacher called Parvati Nandanath Saraswati. She's an Indian woman. She was actually living in the United States at the time, but I found out about a workshop she was teaching in Europe, and I went to it without knowing that there was any way to work further with her. But then the following year, she opened up a program, and it was before things were easily done over the internet. It was 2007 we're at now. So, so I went over to the States to start the program. And at that time, they were filming it and recording it and sending out CDs to long distance students so that you didn't have to turn up to every single workshop. And so that sort of continued for a few years. And basically, I stayed working with her from 2007 till I haven't done a program with her in the last year. There was a 3-year program intensive that I did with her 2016 to 2019. I still do the practices, but I've not been sort of, working with her as closely this last year. I may do again, but I consider her to be have been my main teacher, certainly as far as the feminine power teachings are concerned, and the traditional Tantra teachings are concerned.
When you mention this, finding a female teacher, and how Tantra is, there's the masculine overlay, and I think it's so common. I know in some of the work that you and I have done with other teachers, there's a lot of talk about the hero's journey. And so there is this masculine cover over everything. And, we're actually on more of a heroine's journey, which has some different aspects to it. So I'm kind of thinking, because you are really talking about women's power and empowerment now, I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you're working with that and what you're experiencing nowadays. What's some of the juicy bits that you'd like to share about? And I know one of them, and you and I have talked about this before, about that aging and beauty and how we see ourselves as older women, but there's a power in beauty. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that, or anything that you'd like to share along those lines?
There's loads I could share from what you've said. We can go to the beauty, and then if you want to pick up on, I'll speak a bit more to the bit about what you said about the hero's journey and the heroine. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about the beauty, because there is a segue from what I was saying about the Indian traditions to that, I think, which is that in those traditional, the differences I see it being between some of the Western Tantra traditions and is that a lot of the Western traditions are what I would call dualistic. Mm-hmm. And they talk about Shiva and Shakti, and they relate Shiva to men and Shakti to women. Mm-hmm. But so it's more like they equate Shiva and Shakti with yin and yang, masculine and feminine energies. But in the non-dual traditions that I've studied, that's not the definition of Shiva and Shakti. Mm-hmm. Shiva is pure consciousness. Mm-hmm. It's the undifferentiated field before any form arises. Mm. Shakti is the power of that consciousness to create form. So in those traditions, by definition, all power is feminine.
Mm. Oh, interesting.
So it sort of makes sense. So as they see it, we're talking, in these traditions, we're talking, the roots of them going back thousands of years, at times when, the first adepts, I guess, would have learned a lot by observation. And actually these traditions, they're like pictorial quantum physics, actually. That's how I see them. And it's like all the deities are they represent, cosmic functions as well as internal qualities of mind or consciousness.
Yeah.
So if Shiva is, the undifferentiated, all that is
Yes.
oneness.
Yes.
So in the paintings, you see Shiva and Shakti in Yab Yung, because I think what attracts a lot of Westerners to this is a lot of the sexual imagery.
Right. Right.
And that that imagery was not intended to be like a sexual manual for us. It's it's as above, so below. There is that there. But it's like, it indicates that Shiva and Shakti can never be separated, because in truth, you can't separate consciousness from its power. We may only talk about it separately because it serves a certain purpose, but Shiva and Shakti cannot be separated, because you cannot separate consciousness from its power to take form.
Yes. Yes.
So they say that without Shiva, Shakti has no ground. Without Shakti, Shiva has no expression.
Mm.
So in the main tradition that I've studied, which is a non-dual tradition called Sri Vidya, the main deity, if you like, the feminine god, if you like, who's both Shiva and Shakti, is called Tripura Sundari, and she is bliss, beauty, power, so she, and many other things. She's everything.
Right. Right.
But it's certainly seen that beauty is a primary expression of consciousness and is therefore inherent in all life forms. And so for me, I just think it's, it's like we could call it the Western mindset, the patriarchal mindset, the non-dual, whatever you want to call it, the mindset that we have in the world today, where beauty is more limited to, there's, in any culture, has its own individual idea of beauty.
Right. Right.
But in the spiritual traditions, beauty is inherent in everything.
Yes. Yeah.
And am I still on track here?
Yes.
Because once I talk about this stuff, I just it's like press the button and I keep going. Yeah. So yeah, beauty is a major expression of consciousness. So it's in all forms. It's available to us at all times, not only out in the natural world, but in everything we see that reflects that back to us, because everything is a reflection. Everything is a reflection of the oneness. So that's basically the view in these tantric traditions. There is no separation. Everything that we see is just a reflection of that, if you like. It's the oneness, the indescribable that. So yeah. How would you like me to relate that to women?
Yeah, and because
practice
and also just sort of almost like a mindset shift, because as we know, especially as we're aging, there's we've lost our youth and beauty, and that's so not true.
It's seen, isn't it? Yeah, we're told that we lose our beauty as we get older. We live in a culture that's fairly youth obsessed and defines
fairly.
It's British understatement.
I like that, British understatement.
So yeah, the images we're often presented with as beauty are, they're just a small part of it.
Right.
That's what we could say. It's a small part of it, but it certainly doesn't encourage us to look at, every stage of life can be beautiful. Every age can be beautiful. Every being has its own beauty, whether it meets the standards of cultural beauty or not.
Right.
And really, when we're talking about aging, the way that I'm thinking of it now is more that we need to be thinking about our essence rather than our age. And I know you and I have talked about this before. And in fact, you mentioned my Wise Woman's Journey. And of course, I interviewed you for that. And I think we talked about this a little bit on your interview about the importance of essence and how, as we grow older, if we're taking a more spiritual stance, then it's our essence that can shine more brightly as we age, that inner beauty which can really come out if we've cultivated it.
Yes. Yes.
And maybe we should be happy to exchange our youthful good looks for that.
Yeah.
And maybe we should just look at ourselves a little differently, because essence is something that actually doesn't age.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think all of us have some connection to, whether we call it soul or essence, awareness. We all have some connection to to that part of us, or maybe part's not the right word, but to our beingness.
Yes. Yeah. That aspect of ourselves.
Yeah. Which doesn't age. What looks out of our eyes seems to be the same at any age. And I'm sure you'd say, like me, that, don't feel that different from how I felt at 25. Sure, my thinking has developed, but actually when I'm looking out of my eyes, what I'm seeing, has that aged? There's something that hasn't aged.
Right.
And I don't always look like looking in the mirror and seeing myself looking a lot older. That bit I'm not so happy about. I'm not necessarily saying we should all be happy all the time about it, but yeah, there's something worth cultivating, I think, and worth learning about. But also from the other thing about beauty, because I actually sort of came late to this on my spiritual path. It wasn't something that I thought, the beauty part was not something that I thought about so much until a few years ago. And it was really through doing the practices, the Tripura Sundari practices, and thinking, how about my alignment with that energy. How, if I am her, given if we take the view that we are all an expression of consciousness, how do I express as her, my unique gifts, my unique beauty? So
I love that.
If I give attention,
if
I give attention to beauty, I am honoring the divine. I'm honoring the divine feminine, and I'm choosing to show up as a gift from the divine feminine, whatever age I am.
Yes.
So for me, that doesn't mean having cosmetic alterations. It does mean doing my hair and putting a bit of makeup on, but I must admit I'm not the best person in that department to put loads on. But then that's a choice for everybody. It has the journey, that interesting journey I have taken the last few years. It's more about color, actually, and color vibration, because just like we all have a unique voice, our sound carries our vibration. So we carry unique coloring in our hair, our skin, our eyes. And so I had started studying those colorings and studying a system of color analysis that enabled me to, well, firstly, somebody else did it for me, analyze those colorings. And now I've trained and am able to do it for myself and other people, to present a palette in terms of your color vibration. And I must say, since I've been doing that, I now notice if I'm wearing clothes that are not my color vibration, it feels off. It's such an interesting journey how you become sensitized, and it's like the things that are in your vibration now feel right. And after you've been doing this for a while, the things that are not don't. So interesting. So that's just one way I feel that I'm honoring the divine feminine through my clothes and through my commitment to, giving what I perceive to be my gifts, what I can offer, I guess.
Yeah.
I think all any of us can do really, I think when we're talking about aging and beauty and contribution, it's like, how can you retire from your purpose?
Right.
You can retire from a job, and of course, many people will want to retire for a job for many reasons, and it can be a really nice thing to be able to have retire. If for those who can retire and feel financially cared for, how wonderful! You now have an excellent platform to sort of dig more deeply
into what you want and who you are, right?
And what you should be giving and what you want this part of your life to be about.
Yeah, so true. There's something that when we speak, Kathy, that I just feel like in my heart there's a deep sadness for women who haven't had the opportunity to really experience more of a spiritual aspect of themselves, and becoming in their 50s or at a certain age, it's like all my beauty is gone. And how I think maybe part of our purpose is to share about the spiritual side, that essence, so that they can know that there's more than just the outer. I am.
Yeah, because when I interviewed you, we talked about that a little bit about that, didn't we? How, those feelings of, my beauty is gone, or something else has happened in my life that, the possibilities, it feels that the possibilities have gone, or there's some sort of depression about, or heartbreak.
A grief almost, and
doorways into into something different. So I think the encouragement would be for people who are feeling sad or feeling a sense of loss, whether that's something to do with themselves, about loss of their youth, loss of opportunities, feeling it's too late, loss of their beauty, feeling that they're no longer attractive or could no longer have the relationship they want, or the job that they want, or maybe even like the losses are to do with their health, or there could be so many reasons for feeling disheartened, heartbroken. We talked about the heart, didn't we? And really, it's hard when you're in those states and feeling sad or depressed, I think, sometimes, to see beyond it or see it as an opportunity or a doorway.
Right.
The first step has always got to be, it's finding somebody to talk to, somebody who can assist and who can help, who can listen.
Yeah.
And help you to find those doorways from the point where you are. Because that's all you ever have, isn't it? It's where you're sitting in life at the time. And it's, it's an up and down journey, life. It's not always a bed of roses, far from it.
Yeah, not too many of those beds of roses.
Enjoy the roses while you have them, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But there can be, I think the thing is, if we take that orientation and, none of us like it when, life, certainly life unexpectedly dishes up something.
Right.
But, once we get through enough of that grief or heartbreak, that we can start to see that, okay, it's time to talk to somebody. It's time to get some help.
Yeah.
There are ways through, and there's, there will be more roses,
Mm-hmm. It may be different color or different variety.
Yeah, the beauty will definitely look different, but yeah, it shouldn't be judged as lesser.
Yes. That's why I think the idea of the wise woman journey that you lead women through, and especially this interview series, which is really very exciting. It's like having younger women recognize, oh, there is more. There's a lot more potential. There are a lot more opportunities, because it may seem like, oh, my life is just ending because, I don't have the looks that I had before, or I don't have the spouse that I had before, or the job, or whatever it is. And to be able to speak with a wise woman who's been there and done that and has a different experience and can share, there's a lot more, after you've gone through that door, after you've seen, oh, there's an open doorway here and I can walk through. And someone like you, Kathy, is saying, yes, I've done this. I've experienced this. I can relate to what you're feeling, and come on through. It's the water's warm, or the water's beautiful,
It's more than that, isn't it, Kamala? Because I know both you and I in our work, because we're both professional, personal, and spiritual development practitioners who've trained professionally and got a lot of tools. So it's more than talking from our experience. There is that. And also we both have a lot of transformational tools in our toolkit to help people to sort of clear out some of those old past patterns which are causing the problems, and basically to diagnose, what are the obstacles in the way here? What is it that a person can't break through, or what is the glass ceiling that they can't see? And really to sort of guide them through those barriers so that they don't keep, we all do it, keep going round in circles. When we have that feeling of being in a vicious cycle, that's really when we need to go out and find someone who can help us break it.
Yeah.
Could I just say something about my wise woman's journey?
Yes, please.
So I decided a few months ago that I was going to create what is called in the coaching world a summit. Mm-hmm. So I've been quite ambitious. It's a big summit, 21 speakers on 21 wise women speakers. The speakers range from their late 40s to their late 70s. Mm-hmm. And the subtitle is How to Grow Older as a Powerful Woman, Embracing New Opportunities, Experiencing Deep Fulfillment, and Feeling Valued. And as you said at the beginning, a lot of my intention was about creating a new narrative on aging, beauty, and contribution for women, and also starting a community where women could get the support that, many of us can't. I mean, like I mentioned before, if we take a different path from, other people in our family or social circle and our friends, we need places to go to get support.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. And not everybody is taking this journey.
Right.
So that was really what I wanted to create through it. So it's basically a sequence. It's being aired from the 1st to the 21st of March. And basically it's a sequence of interviews, daily video interviews, and I've set them up in topics. So it is experienced like a journey, I hope.
Yeah.
And it's free. It's free. The 21-day journey is free. And to register, and I guess you'll have the link somewhere, Kamala.
I do. And that'll be put in the show notes too.
Sure. wisewomanjourney.com, and registration's open now. So.
Yes. Great. I am so excited about this because I think it is such an opportunity and exciting to listen to a variety of women on a variety of topics. So that's very really exciting.
And Kamala's in there. We had a great conversation, so it was very definitely worth listening to. Well, I think they're all worth listening
they
to.
All are. So we'll be hearing more about that, folks. Oh, well, Kathy, thank you so much for your time today. And I'm just really grateful to have an opportunity to speak with you about all of this, especially the piece about the essence for women and the opportunities that as we go through this journey, what really does open up for us. So I'm very excited. Thank you so much. I also, as listeners know, I like to ask the women that I interview, if you could whisper in the ear of a younger version of yourself, what would you whisper to her?
Yeah, it's two things. One would be about trusting your intuition and allowing yourself to follow it rather than discounting it. And the other one would be, it's okay to say no and set boundaries. And it's okay to be angry when somebody steps on those.
Yeah. Love that. Well, again, thank you, Kathy. This has been so enriching. I just feel I don't like the word, well, I definitely feel fuller. I was going to say expanded, and that felt like not exactly it. It was just like fuller and richer. So thank you so much. And again, about Kathy's website is KatherineRowan.com. I will put that in the show notes, and I hope that you will also tune into the Wise Woman's Journey.
The website is Wise Woman's
Journey.
WOMANS, so woman's, not women's.
Very good. So for clarity, we'll put that in the show notes because I bungled it.
Plenty of opportunities, yes. It was probably best to clarify it. Thank you.
Good. Well, again, thank you, Kathy. Thank you, listeners. I hope you will tune in next time. And until then, blessings. Take care. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
So there you have it, a little heart and chutzpah for the day. Today, give yourself a little permission to be both big-hearted and a little feisty, just like you were created to be. Thank you for joining me. I hope you'll reach out to me via social media at Kamala Murphy, and it's Murphy with an EY, or at my website, kamalamurphy.com. Again, thank you for joining me. Many blessings until next time. Bye for now.